Alright, what's up guys? My name is ECR member Joshua. We're coming at you live from the East Coast Reconnaissance Headquarters here in Florida. Today, we're going to be talking about this bad boy. More specifically, the Wraith stock that is installed into him. You see a little logo, the telltale logo in the back. If you don't know what the Wraith stock is, this is a new-ish product from Wolverine Airsoft, a company who we really enjoy over here at East Coast Reconnaissance. Basically, what it does, it says it on the box, it allows you to achieve HPA-like performance without the tank or the line. It does this by, instead of running off of an air tank that you carry around on your back, running off of 12-gram CO2 cartridges that you carry wherever you like. They plug into this stock, into the back of the stock right there. You see Wolverine's designed a really nice little QD cap, and you can just pop your little CO2 cartridge in. This one's spent already, empty. Pop it in like that, nose down, and then you twist the cap on like that, it charges up, and now you're ready to go. Pretty simple idea, pretty effective idea. Definitely an interesting system. It basically works off of the gas from there, runs through a storm regulator that they have stored right in front of the puncturing valve system, runs through the line into a Wolverine solenoid engine system like the, in this case it's the SMP. You could also run a Hydra or an Inferno would also work. And in some cases you can also do a Bolt if you purchase a different type of Wraith stock. You can run off their new Wolverine Bolt. But in this case we're doing it with an SMP. Alright? So you see that this is an add-on to a pre-existing Wolverine engine. Just one other thing to say about the Wraith stock is their compatibility. They're compatible with pretty much just M4s. They would work. I've seen them work with AKs that have buffer tubes. You could run it such that it would function for that. Any sort of a shotgun that has a buffer tube, they put out a Wraith kit for the R870s from Tokyo Marine, so there are Wraith kits for that. But basically, rule of thumb is if it doesn't have a buffer tube, it's not really going to work for that gun. So yeah, basically just guns with buffer tubes, pretty much M4s. Not really a problem for most people. Usually if you've got a gun, it's an M4, but there are those outliers who use, say, a Galil or an F2000 might not be super easy to fit a Wraith into there. Alright, so just in case anyone is wondering, this gun was commissioned by ECR member Liam while he's away in the Air Force. He had me build this gun for him so that when he gets back, he'll have a fancy pants BB blaster that he can take out to the fields. Maybe in our Milson West game that we're planning on going to, maybe Stonebreaker 2017, just so he'll have something that he can shoot some fools with. All right. So the stock itself is $275. That's going to stack on to the price of the engine that you purchased, be that an Inferno, a Hydra, or an SMP. So that's bringing out pretty expensive. But you're understanding, of course, that this runs in contrary to the price of an air rig. So you won't need to pay for an airline, a regulator, other than the storm regulator in there, and a tank on your back. You won't have to pay for any of that if you don't want to. One interesting feature about these, the Wraith stock is that it can be dual sourced. What that means is you purchase a little dual sourcing kit. You do a little fiddly stuff on the inside on the install, and then you can also run a line out your grip. Alright, so what that means is that if you want, you can carry a tank on your back, plug in your line, and whenever you shoot the gun, you're going to be drawing from the air tank that's on your back. But if you want, you can unplug the line from your gun, drop your air tank, and then you're going to be running off the CO2 seamlessly. Just plug and unplug, and it'll essentially detect. If there's an air tank, it'll use the air tank. If there's no air tank, it'll use the CO2. So, it says on the box that you can get 200 shots out of each CO2 cartridge. That is, efficiency-wise, that's unheard of in Airsoft. Normally you don't get more than 50 shots out of a CO2 cartridge in previous CO2 weapons. My personal experience with this gun, yeah, you can get 200 shots out of each CO2 cartridge, but that's on such a low PSI that the gun isn't shooting at HPA level anymore. So it can be done, yeah, you can get 200 shots out of a cartridge, but if you're using the gun competitively, if you're, if you've got a higher velocity, if you're shooting it, especially on full auto is what really kills these things, but if you're shooting it on a heavier velocity, a heavier BB at a higher velocity, you're going to be getting more along the lines of 75 to 120 shots out of these cartridges. At least that's what I've found so far. I still am fiddling around trying to get this thing tuned exactly where I want it so I can get maximum use out of one cartridge. Right now, the way I'm getting it, it's about 1 AEG mag per cartridge. Again, I think I can probably fiddle it around, get a little more or a little less depending on exactly what I need the gun to be doing. Alright, so the install for the Wraith stock is pretty invasive into the gun. There's a lot of things you got to do, a lot of fabrication work you got to do. Most of it is cutting the gearbox. There's a considerable portion of the gearbox, the back of the gearbox, that needs to be cut off in order to facilitate the install of the gearbox. Also, most of the buffer tube attachment point on the lower receiver needs to be ground down, needs to be ground into a very short length to accommodate the Wraith stock's buffer tube component. And also you need to widen out the hole in the back of the lower receiver to accommodate the new airline and the sheath in which the airline goes, and there's also threads on the outside that attach the stock to the lower receiver. If you're interested in doing that yourself, Wolverine Airsoft put out a really good video kind of detailing step by step all the different steps that you need to take in order to do those fabrications yourself. If you don't feel so comfortable doing it yourself, you can definitely hire a technician, either an Airsoft tech or just some other general fabrication office will be happy to do all those cuts for you so you don't have to worry about it yourself. But just be forewarned, if you're asking me, it's an invasive install. You definitely not an easy install by any means, but it's doable. Alright, so getting a little bit up and close and personal here, we're going to talk about how exactly you lengthen and shorten the chamber where the cartridges sit. The reason you would want to do this is because different manufacturers of different CO2 cartridges have different standards for exactly how long they should be. Generally, it's a pretty small difference, but it can be enough that it screws with your puncturing, your consistency, which is not something you want to have happen out on the field. So, to set it to your manufacturer's length, the way you do is you get a cartridge of the manufacturer that you will be using, in this case using Crossman CO2. And then what you're going to do, you're going to get your Allen key set, you're going to loosen up this screw right here. I've already done that, of course. Then you're going to screw this entire system back. Just try and make sure that you're screwing only the chamber back. Right behind it is the regulator. Make sure you're not moving the regulator. That should stay pretty much stationary. If that does happen, if you pull out the whole regulator system, then screw it back in, tighten it down, and then try again. Alright, so what you'll do when this, once you've got it screwed in, you're going to take your CO2 cartridge. This one's already been punctured, as you can see. Your CO2 cartridge, plug it in, get that little scallop on. You want to get it to that second scalloped section right there without it puncturing. Obviously, we've done that here. Of course, it's already been punctured. Then you're going to screw it in until you hear a familiar sound of CO2 puncturing. What you're listening for is for it to puncture and then fill the system and not leak. All right, once you hear that, you can stop right where you've heard that. Then you're going to empty out the system. You can do this by firing the weapon on full auto, of course. Once the system is emptied, you're going to be careful not to move this guy at all. Take the scallop off, take out your CO2 cartridge, then you're going to back the entire system up by 1, all right? So before, in the last step, you were screwing it down, you're making it closer, then you're going to back it up just 1 of these little flats. You can see these sort of arches here. That's what we're talking about when I say back it up by 1. So backing it up by 1 is going from that arch to that arch, all right? Once you've done that, you can get your Allen key set back out, and you're going to tighten this screw back down. Again, this guy can be just snug. You don't have to be super tight with it. Just snug enough that this entire system doesn't turn is what you want. Then, if it all goes well, you should be able to take your little scallop guy, twist him real tight onto that second scallop, and you should hear, again, that puncture, and then the system will fill, and you won't hear any leaks if you've done it right. If you want a more detailed description of how exactly you should do that, again, Wolverine put out another video on that process. It's called the Wraith setup. You can go watch that. If I didn't do a good enough job explaining it here, if you have any questions, you can go watch his video. Alright, so one other thing that I want to address about these Wraith stocks is I've heard that they have a tendency, and this is definitely true with the one that I received, they have a tendency to wobble with almost any stock that you put onto them. They have a little bit of play. You probably see that does play around. This is a mil-spec stock. This is a mil-spec CTR Magpul stock. It wobbles around a good bit. So if you're using a commercial stock, I believe that's the word that they use for non-mil-spec, a commercial stock is going to have even more play, right? There's a couple different things you can do to minimize that wobble. What I have done is just put electrical tape around part of the stock to widen out part of the stock so that we have a little less wobble. I'm going to probably put more on. Definitely a short-term fix, but well, I think it's something better to do. I've heard of people putting the female side of Velcro on the outside of the stock, and they say that works super duper well. But yeah, just be aware that that's a problem that they have. So they're a little bit thinner than mil-spec. Yeah, that's a thing. Cool. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this gun out to the yard over there. We're gonna give it a couple shots just to see that it works, to show you guys that it does work. We'll be using an Xcortech X3300 to show you the velocity that we're shooting it at. Of course, it's a Wraith stock, so one of the Wolverine products, so it's totally adjustable. You can adjust its PSI through the storm regulator in the buffer tube right there. There's a little adjustment point for you. You can adjust it. So we're going to take it out and give it some shots just to see that it does work, kind of get a feel for it. Of course, most of the accuracy is not the fault or to be credited to the Wraith stock, but just because we like shooting guns, we're going to go out and shoot it, okay? So get off our case. All right, cool. Let's go on out and shoot this thing. All right, so we're out here in the middle of nowhere. We're going to be shooting a Wraith stock. Obviously, the accuracy, like I said before, the accuracy is all in front of the Wraith stock, so accurate or inaccurate is not the fault of the stock, but still nice to see. We like to shoot our guns, so it's nice to show that it does work. Alright, so for the shooting test, we're using .2 BBs. Obviously, if you're using any sort of Wolverine product, I recommend you shoot something bigger than that, but for the in the interest of being, conforming to industry standards, we're using .2 BBs in this magazine. We've already loaded a 12-gram cartridge. Hopefully we'll keep some BBs when we run out of here so that we'll still be able to show a change. We're going to show a change no matter what. Alright, and using an Xcortech X3300 to measure the FPS. Again, it's adjustable PSI, so FPS could be whatever you want it to be. Right now, the Wraith stocks don't have a gauge on them, so I can't tell you exactly what the PSI we're running is, but I can tell you it's pretty low as far as they go. I think, at least. Alright, so let's go ahead and shoot it. Aiming for a barrel over there. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but we're aiming for that. So let's go ahead and shoot this bad boy. Alright, shot number uno. It's 385 with a .2. That's definitely shooting in your field range. Definitely what we're looking for. You can hear every time I shoot, you can hear, I don't know if you can hear it on the camera, but there's an audible sound of the regulator charging, which is super cool to listen to. Yeah, we're shooting pretty consistently around 385, 386. It's the kind of consistency that you expect from the Wolverine products. They're really, really good at essentially just keeping consistently. Obviously, since we're using CO2 cartridges, it's going to drop off near the end of the cartridge, but it does a pretty good job in the shooting I've done before this with staying consistent up to the last, like, 5 shots or so. Stays pretty much consistent. All right, let's do some full auto. This is really going to murk the CO2 cartridges. Like I said, in there, the CO2 cartridges do not like full auto. They definitely waste a lot of CO2 doing that, but you can do it anyway. See, our FPS is a little bit higher in full auto. And that looks like that's the mag. That's the mag. Well, if you liked this video, be sure to give it a like. If you really liked it, you can give our channel a subscription. You can head on over to our Instagram, follow us over there. Put out a lot of content throughout the week. I love you guys. I've been ECR member Joshua, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Alright guys, my name is ECR member Joshua. Welcome back to another video on our YouTube channel. This one, we're going to be talking about this bad boy. This is the brand new right out of the box, Wolverine bolt engine from Wolverine Airsoft.